Hey. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another BizBuzz Live. We're live right now on LinkedIn, live on YouTube. Hey, this is the show you're not going to want to miss. You're not going to want to miss this show. I'm going to give you a little extra time to get your notifications, to send this to somebody right away because it's going to be good. We're going to have a really good conversation. We're going to dive in. I have a guest coming on to the show today. We normally don't do a lot of guests over here on BizBuzz. That's why today is going to be special, y'all. So stick around today and let's dive into this conversation around the 2026 job market. All right, everybody. Welcome in to another BizBuzz Live. Again, I'm your host, Chris Muzan, your financial coach, financial therapist, helping you through all things finance. You guys know the thesis here on BizBuzz is we in this financial space, right, have done a really good job with all the things. We've done a good job with teaching people how to budget their money and how to have the right investments and invest in their 401k and get out of debt and save money. And we do a good job with all those things. The place that we do not, in my opinion, do a great job is teaching people how to earn money, how to bring it in. If cash flow is a conversation we need to have, sure, we need to budget. Sure, we need to make sure we're keeping more of what's coming in. But it's also important to understand how to make money. And there's lots of ways to make money. And I don't think they teach us or they've taught us ways to go off and make more money. Today, we're going to have a conversation with someone that I just got connected with. We'll talk a little bit about how we got connected, but it's going to be a great conversation. Today's special guest is the resilient recruiter, Natalie Lemons. Quick intro on her. She's a career and leadership transition expert with over 20 years of experience. She helps organizations hire resilient leaders through smarter executive search and evaluations, guides professionals to replace outdated job search tactics with practical tools and strategies that create real momentum. We're going to have a really solid conversation today. No fluff, just great insights on hiring and leadership. So for everyone, please welcome Natalie Lemons here to the show. Natalie, thanks for jumping on today.
Wow, that was a great introduction. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Hey, you deserve it. Those are your accomplishments. You have a lot of really good stuff going. I want you to introduce yourself to the audience a bit, give a little background. I just gave a little bit, but talk a little bit about maybe how you got started in this recruiting side of things.
Well, it's an interesting story. I started out as a teacher, and my friend was placed by a recruiting firm one summer, and I was looking for a temporary office job and went to this recruiting firm, and the manager said, well, what about you working for us? So I tried it one summer, went back the second summer, and decided to stay on. And well, that was 1999. So it's been a little while.
You're still there. You're still there. That's awesome. That's awesome. How did we got connected because I posted over on our Jobs to Journey TikTok a clip from an older BizBuzz Live that I had done where, again, the thesis here is just trying to talk about industry, talk about what's happening in the job market. Are there different ways to make money? And I talked to a lot of younger people. So the clip might have gotten taken out of context, but it's okay, right? Because we're here. But I said for people that are early in their journey, the 18 to 24, my belief, and this was the whole show that we talked about, I said, my belief is that, hey, this whole go to school, get good grades, get a job, and just go down this path when you don't really know what you want to do. And so you're switching majors and you're trying to figure it out and you don't really know. I said, well, there's another route that you can go. You can just start testing the job market. Just if you don't know what you want to do, why go to college and spend money on a degree that you probably won't use, that you're probably going to change? Well, why not just try this job? You're 18. If you don't like it, change jobs. Figure out what you want to do over there. Go over here. And we got a lot of comments on that, right? It was
Someone tagged me in it. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's why I was like, no, don't do that.
exactly, right? And so that's where this conversation kind of started. And I was interested in your insight because, again, perspective is everything. There's no right or wrong way, I believe, to do anything, but you have to have the right perspective to understand what are the pros and cons of doing it the way that you're doing it, right? So that's kind of how we got here. And today, I just wanted to have some conversations about the job market. You know, the job market probably much more than me. I'm an entrepreneur. I haven't had a job in 11 or 12 years now, right? So I'm coming from a different angle, but I'd love to hear your perspective on like what's happening in the job market right now? Like, what are you seeing by trying to place people? What are you seeing by, companies that are hiring? So talk to me a little bit about the job market right now.
Well, the job market is probably worse than most people are necessarily, in 2009, which I don't know if that's before your time. It's when I started my business, but it was the Great Recession and everything on the news was doom and gloom because it was.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think that companies are trying to cover a lot of that. Like it's probably worse than we think.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, the market is slow and stagnant. I know that I've even written about the great freeze because people don't want to move like they did. 2022, I mean, people were just, I think they called it the great resignation. There's some phrase for everything, but
Sure.
people were leaving jobs. They were constantly, switching around because everyone wanted a remote job at that time. So companies were desperate to hire. They'd hire you on the spot. It was like 1990 something, where somebody had a pulse and a decent personality and they'd hire them. Well,
Sure.
now it's 100% different. If people will go through 7 or 8 interviews, like I'll see on some of my channels, people will say, I just went through 4 interviews, final round, didn't hear anything for 2 or 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden I get a note that says, hey, we went with another candidate, or nothing at all.
Wow.
So, I mean, I think companies are a lot more hesitant to hire people. And I keep using the word risk in all my articles, but it's because they don't want to make a move. They don't want to hire the wrong person that they're going to, they're going to turn around and have to let go in a couple of months. People are hesitant to move because of that.
Yeah.
Processes are moving slower.
Yeah. What do you think the shift, like this is 4 years, right? 3.5, 4 years of 2022, everybody was hiring Willie. Like what happened?
Well, there's the whole tariff piece. There's, wars going on everywhere. People are, big companies are nervous. And when big companies are nervous, the market's unsettled, everything kind of trickles down from there. And, it's kind of the result of that. There were layoffs that were blamed on tariffs, just like there are layoffs blamed on AI now. But were they?
Right.
Maybe, maybe not.
Right. We've had this conversation here too, that we see people getting laid off, but what the companies say they're laying off for is normally not the reason why they're laying people off. So the economy obviously has had a big influence in this job market right now, right? So are there specific industries that you're seeing that are doing better or worse than others now?
Well, and this is another market indicator, at least in my opinion. I mean, we're hiring for finance people. So senior accountants, controllers, CFOs. That's always telling to me because those are the people that save money and make cuts for you. They're not hiring the marketing people. They're not hiring those people that are quote unquote cost centers. They're hiring the people that are going to save them money. Obviously people are hiring for AI, but then again, then we're hearing all of a sudden, there are layoffs because of AI. So, and the other thing that's just really troubling to me is that they're hiring for AI, but these people aren't formally trained and everything regarding AI is changing so quickly, they can't keep up with it. So
Are
You
you
know,
are you are you getting that a lot across your desk? Like, are you getting companies that are looking in this AI space? Are you getting candidates that are like beefing up their resume with like their AI experience? Are you seeing AI take over a bunch?
they will get these like online courses, like a Coursera certification on AI, but how relevant is that? And like I said, everything's constantly changing. Or I'll have clients ask me, where can we get a person that can do all of our AI? We want somebody to automate everything for us. Define everything. So
There's lots of companies, I'm sure, that are trying to figure it out. Because at the end of the day, right, businesses are the business of business is to stay in business, right? And so you have to be efficient. You have to cut expenses. You have to raise revenue. Like it's just the way it goes. And I think AI will make a huge shift in our work and how we work and what we do. What I've told people about the AI side of things is it's not going to replace everyone, but
no,
it's gonna get us to third base, right? Where we used to have a human that had to get us to third base, right? You had to have a human to get you all the way there and then take you home. Like now, AI is gonna take you all the way to third base, and then you need a human to take you home. But that's gonna mean a lot less people in the workforce the way we know it today,
the
right?
way we know it today, I mean, it's so AI, I feel like, is taking away a lot of that task work. But my friend actually spoke at a conference on this last year that AI is not going to replace our jobs because a lot of times empathy and human decision making skills, things like that, are always going to be necessary and relevant. But
Sure.
what I mean, and I'll stand on my soapbox here and tell you, the market, the way we know it, I mean, maybe there aren't going to be as many, tactical customer service people, but where companies are dying for is trades jobs. I mean, if I'd be a millionaire right now just if I could find machinists
I know.
or plumbers or HVAC technicians. I mean, people are dying for that and they pay well, but we've trained our kids that you don't want to do that job. You want to go to college and get your piece of paper, name your degree.
Exactly.
And that's really just created, inequality in the workplace.
It's huge. It's huge. We did a whole show on the
Did you?
trades and I like I'm 40 and I'm like, man, should I go become an electrician? Right? Like I'm even contemplating like, should I get this skill set to like work with my hands? I've never again, we've trained our generations to like work like with your mind, with your brain, right? That's what school does. But now we're shifting where it's like we need to figure out how to staff these electricians, plumbers, HVACs. And I don't know that we have our system, like our society is set up in the way where we're promoting that, where we're pushing people in that direction. I don't even know many. This is a business idea. I always have business ideas, Natalie, like
Me too. Me
constantly,
too.
right? Like the trade school like needs to become more relevant, just like we all know colleges and higher education, like, and they have commercials and like I don't know any trade schools. Like you really have to like search deeply to find where do I even go, how do I get into one. Like we need to make that more popular for people so that they can understand like this is a viable way you're going to go off and make money probably in the next decade, you know.
I, I think that it's really just been criticized as, a cop out or not the way that you want to go because I'm in my 50s and even, and my brothers are 60 and 65.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were in school, I mean, the trade programs were just as relevant as anybody that was college prep. There were mechanics, there were carpentry, there, tool and die, different things that are, sought after experiences that, large portions, I mean, I grew up in a middle class suburb, so large portions of people were going that route and they have viable careers to this day. I mean, I know union electricians right now that are making 300 grand a year.
I believe you.
It's a, you know, it's a successful route, but I mean, we've put it down for so many years. And I mean, even now, my kids are Gen Zs and they have a couple of friends that have gone that route. One of them is a glazer, which is putting glass up on office buildings, and another's an electrician. And they kind of scoffed at it. Well, they're doing great.
Exactly. They're not
And
scoffing anymore.
no, and some of their friends that, have 4-year degrees have had a hard time finding jobs or have switched jobs several times because, just to your point, they haven't figured out exactly what they want to do, which
Yep.
is kind of unfair that we make kids make a life decision at 18 years old with a career direction.
That's exactly right. Right. And that's been my message more from an entrepreneurial standpoint, because I really do like to push people in that direction. Again, I've had a job. My last job, I was a restaurant manager, right? So I actually have a degree, culinary arts, associates
Mhm.
in culinary arts, bachelor's food service management. Again, at 18, you think you know what you want to do.
Yeah.
And then I come out and then I start working in the industry and I'm like, man, this kind of sucks, right? Like
Long
this
hours, late nights. It's hard to
holidays,
have.
weekends, right? You don't see
I,
your
I
family.
I worked in fine dining as a second job, or even when my kids were little, I stayed home for a couple of years and
Mhm.
then worked part-time in fine dining. And you're working till midnight and every holiday. And it's a tough job for you
That's
to
it.
have
That's it. No,
beyond your 20s.
that's right. No one told me that at 18 when I'm going to school for that. Like, no, I didn't get that insight. And that's also something I think that's really important that we should start doing, is like being transparent about the industries that we're pushing kids into. Like, what does this look like from a work-life balance, from a quality of life standpoint, and from an income standpoint? One of the things I do when I meet with children, I coach kind of younger people in
Right.
finance too. I'll ask them, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? Right? Like, that's the question you always give kids. And then I say, how much money do you think that makes? And then we pull it up, right? Because sometimes they never told us like how much money that makes, like in that career. What's that look like as you get older? And it's not until we get older that we're like, man, I probably chose the wrong career. I probably should go this direction. And
I
I'm
see that all the time.
all the time, right? All the time. And I'm trying to figure out how to course correct that. And that's where, again, nudging people down, just go start working. Like, you'll figure it out. I know it's not the conventional, traditional route that we know, but it's probably in 2026 a little bit better to say, like, do you know what it's like to work retail or to work in a fine dining restaurant or to be, right, an accountant or work under, some entrepreneur or something? Like, that brings the experience. And then if you realize, man, I do need this degree, then go to school. Like, school's
Yeah.
always going to be there, but you don't have to start at 18 and think that it's the next path. Because what I tell people, it's like 13th grade, right? Like, when you come out and you don't know what you're doing, it's 13th grade. Like, you're not really learning anything. I just met with a kid. I met with a guy, a young lady yesterday from Penn State, Abington. And I was asking them like what they do, like what their major is. One was accounting. The other guy was something in finance or business, something like that. And I started asking them basic financial questions, like financial literacy questions, like what's compound interest, right? Like basic things.
Can I tell you just a story? So again, my kids are 25 and 27, and we were sitting on the patio a few years ago when the kids were all in college, and one of their friends had no idea that he was not supposed to pay anything above that minimum payment on his credit card. And he goes, man, I mean, I don't know what the whole deal is with the credit cards. I mean, I feel like I'm paying, but my balance keeps going up. And I go, hold on, what do you mean? Because what I like just forced into my kids is whatever that total balance is, that's what you
Hey,
pay. If you can't afford to pay it every month, you don't buy it.
that's right.
Pretend like you're writing a check for it or you're giving away cash.
That's
Look at
right.
what you have and look at what you can spend. But here, this kid, the mother's a nurse, the father is an engineer with NASA. We're not talking about people who are
I know.
uneducated. And here's this kid, a junior in college, and doesn't understand that he's supposed to pay more than the $15. And I'm like, hold on, you're doing what?
Yeah.
And I said, you understand that interest rate on there, it's compounding every month that you're not paying that balance off.
Yeah.
He goes, well, that's what I mean. I just feel like I'm drowning. Well, of course you are.
Of course you are. This is why
I digress, but
Listen, the financial literacy part, like that's what I do. So the financial education part is so important because who's responsible for teaching us money? Like you said, like parents are nurse and engineer. You would think that they're responsible for saying like, hey, this is how interest works. This is how a credit card works. But not everybody gets that. And then you go off to school and then you think you're getting a accounting degree, finance degree, and you learned everything about money and you come out and you're still in debt and you don't know how to get out and you don't know how to save. Like there's so many things that again, we're just not teaching from a financial standpoint, especially in school that again, I think it's practical, right? Knowledge of like, I got a credit card. I learned how to do this. Like, I think that's what people need. So,
I think high schools need to bring back home ec to learn to
mm,
cook, because nobody, and I mean, I'm generalizing here,
sure.
but understanding how to cook from scratch, and not ordering Uber Eats every night, because that's another one that I hear a lot. And
Huge.
meal prep, do things like that to save yourself money. But number two, have that financial literacy class and make those two prerequisites for graduation, no matter what route you're going.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
I also feel colleges need to have, they have career services, but are they really sitting down and talking to you about like what realistic jobs are going to be, how you really interview and set yourself up as somebody who has no experience but wants to get that job?
Sure.
And I don't think they do that. I mean, they'll set you up with internships or answer basic questions, but they're not giving you, and maybe they're not being as hard lined about it as they should be.
They're
But
not.
I'm
They're
going
not.
to retire and go do that for a living. So
Listen, it's needed. The whole education system in general, Natalie, needs an overhaul because we're not setting people up for success. I've ran into that young lady I told you that was in accounting. I was like, we might not need accountants in the same way in 5 years, right? Everything that you do with numbers, a computer can actually do better than you. There's probably going to be some space, but it's not going to be as many as you think. And she kind of looked around like, he's killing my dream. And I'm like,
yeah,
someone
maybe
should
some
have told you that.
interpretation or the client interaction piece, like from public accounting, but
Yep,
the actual books themselves. I mean, even some of these ERP systems are coming up with AI functions now.
exactly. Exactly. So the technical balancing a sheet that they like, balance sheet that they're learning is like that might not really help you moving forward. And I don't think the institutions are telling them that. On this AI topic, we got a question. I got a question, I think, in LinkedIn that said, what's your take on AI resumes? Like both sides of it. So what we've heard and I've heard, people are using AI more to write their resume, and companies are using AI more to read resumes. So what's your take on this AI resume stuff?
Oh, I have lots of thoughts on that. So we'll start with the writing your resume with AI. I mean, there are definite pros and cons to it, but from a pro standpoint, it can make your resume look beautiful. And, so from a structural standpoint, I'm okay with that. And we actually, I did this with somebody recently because I was, working with them to find a job. And I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this in and we're going to do an AI resume. Well, every single AI resume, it's like a robot wrote it, has the same wording. Like if you've ever seen AI, they're going to use the word structural and quietly and things like that all the time. So, use it as the skeleton or the basis of your resume, but it doesn't go in and talk about what you specifically did.
Sure.
I did a video on it, like, what was the business problem? What was your impact and what was the result? Think of like your star questions, but a little more succinct. So if what you did was save the company 22% and, 4 hours, per week of time, this is what you need to put in there. Like, what specific thing did you do that made that, made the job better, improve the company performance, save them money, think about that. And that's what you want to put in there. I mean, some people will just take their job description and just paste it in. No, that's not right either. Don't do that.
Right.
Yes, we want to know what you did, but what systems did you use? And I'm sticking with the accounting function that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So were you working in SAP or Oracle and you're at a larger company, or were you small and did you work in QuickBooks or Sage or something that a smaller company would have? Talk about the systems you've used, talk about specifically what you did. Maybe you came up with a spreadsheet to paste everything into, that you were able to, create a workflow that everybody could step into, and it would save, and think about the amount of time it would save. I mean, and I said, from or I'll say to people, from a percentage standpoint, you can estimate a little bit. Don't get crazy, but you can estimate a little bit. Like, it saved us 20% of our workday.
Sure.
So from an AI standpoint, just high level overview, yes, you can use it. Don't use that as your finished product. Use it as your rough draft and go in and add specific things. Same thing if you see a job description that has specific skills and you think, well, I did that, but it's not in your resume. Add a bullet point,
Sure.
and that's, you don't have to do it for every single one. Some people get crazy and they have 50 different versions of their resume, but if you feel like it can improve your chances.
Yeah.
And so shifting over to AI from a resume screening standpoint, there's a human in there that's creating the filters, and sometimes they get a little carried away with it.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you'll miss out on great candidates that are in your system. And this even happened before AI took place, or before AI started being, integrated into the ATS systems. I
Sure.
can't tell you, people just, they're looking at who applied to that job. They're not looking at who's sitting in their system. They're looking at the here and now. And you have to keep that in mind and in consideration. That's why I tell people to go and look for other means of getting into companies. There are times, and I'll go back. We'll use accounting again.
Yeah.
So somebody's looking for a controller, and I call a candidate about the job, and they're like, I applied to that company 3 months ago when I was first downsized, and I never heard anything back. And so what I do from that point is I'll call them and say, I found this candidate, and they're, here's their background. They're doing exactly what you're looking for. And they're like, well, we don't see them in our job. And I'm like, well, look in your system. And, I'm not going to get into the arguments for recruiters of who owns what, but this person is spot on for your job, but you didn't bother to look beyond the parameters. Or maybe they put a filter in that, and this existed before AI. Maybe they put a filter in that ruled that person out because of the way they have their resume worded. So I don't think it's end all to be all. A lot of, even our applicant tracking system, when I'm searching through my candidate database, doesn't always bring up, like, I'll let the AI version go through, and then I'll go in and manually put in the prompts to filter out. And I'll get 8 or 10 people that I'm like, there they are, because I'll have someone in mind and they're not coming up. So don't, for people who are using that, don't use it as gospel in terms of searching for candidates,
Yeah.
But it keeps me in business because
I bet it does. I bet it does. Because you need somebody, you need a human. We talked about this off camera, right? Or maybe it was just on camera. I don't know. But it was on camera. Third base, right? Like, you need a person to get you home, right? And so making sure that there's a human touch added to that, it's really important. So overall, you're thinking you can use AI to write the shell of the resume, but you,
yes,
the human, need to go in and really update it, doctor it, tailor it more to you.
put
Yes.
specific impacts that you have, because most of them will have a beautifully written summary of what you do in that job. So did month-end close, reconciled the books every month, etc. Well, did you do it faster?
Right.
What system did you use? Did you put a process in place to change the close time from 12 days to 4 days? I mean, what did you do? Let's dig into that. Or
Got
maybe you worked with your boss to do something. Put it in there.
Yeah, understood. More high level, Natalie, do you think a resume is still the best way to get in front of an employer?
I think that there's still a very valid reason for resumes. So I think it's necessary. A lot of people will argue with me on cover letters. A lot of times I don't look at them, I'll be honest. But if somebody has, so I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. If I'm working on a job in Cleveland, Ohio, and somebody has a Charlotte, North Carolina address, I'm going to go into their cover letter and I'm going to read, the reason that they're looking, because that's your opportunity to explain. If it isn't completely clear, so have a cover letter, have it, even though some people say don't do it. Some companies require you to download one, so have one on hand. You can keep one that's a standard. You can add a couple of additional details. The other thing I would say too, if you're applying for a job, apply through the company website, not on Indeed, not on LinkedIn, because you have that opportunity to, put your cover letter in, fill out an application and explain why, you're trying to get back to whatever city that the job is in because you have family there. You're originally from there. You need to be there for, name the reason, personal or professional, spouse was transferred there, so it gives you an opportunity to explain a little bit more. But yes, your resume is necessary. You can rope me in if I'm digressing, but
No, you're good.
networking is important too.
Yes.
And a lot of people, especially younger people, will say, I don't need these people, I don't need this boss. You're building your network there.
Right.
Don't burn your bridges. That's another reason I say be careful on the job hopping, because you want to develop a reputation and you want to develop a relationship with coworkers, with supervisors, so that if you need them, because I still do pick up the phone and call references, and I'll say, give me a supervisor, give me a peer. I want to know how you work as a team, and I want to know what you're like to manage. And so that's why I say be careful from the job hopping standpoint, because chances are, a baby boomer or a Gen Xer is going to be interviewing you, and they're looking for, if you move jobs, have a logical reason.
Sure.
And, because there are even some people that are downsized 3 times in a row.
Sure.
Well, I want to know why.
Sure.
And
is one of the logical reasons money? Is that a logical reason to move jobs?
it's not what you're going to say in an interview.
Okay.
But it could be, yes. That's when you answer that question with growth potential or a career trajectory that was present in the new job that was not present in the other job, because maybe your supervisor or everybody that was above you was basically at the same level you are.
Sure. Now, so this is where we'll kind of land the plane. Is we'll talk about this job hopping, because that's how we got connected, and that was the clip we talked about. Here's, again, and this is coming from me as an entrepreneur. Like I've not climbed the corporate ladder. I've not kind of played the game, as I tell people, right? I haven't played that game. But here's been something that I've heard that is true, that when you do well, like you'll get poached. Like you'll have the companies that are like, we want you, just come over here and we'll pay you more. And that's a form of job hopping as well. It's just you're not doing, like they are taking you from another company. Is that desirable? Like, I mean, that sounds like a good deal. Like if you're good at what you do and you do it for a year, and then all of a sudden this other bigger company is like, hey, you want to come work with us? And we're like, yeah, I will. And then you jump over there and then it happens again. I feel like that's a way to climb the ladder. Yes.
Yes. And if I'm talking to someone and they tell me that, hey, I was at this company, but we were purchased by a private equity firm, and, they were working on consolidating us. My former boss, who was eliminated because he was senior leadership, actually went to another company and recruited me to come here because they like what I did at this company. So I followed them. I am 100% okay with that. That's a great way to talk to somebody about, because that signals, hey, I'm really good at what I do. I'm so good that I was recruited 2 or 3 times to, especially, remember, the former supervisor, I was recruited to go do that at a new company. Mm-hmm. And I actually did an article on that. how do some people who don't even apply end up getting jobs? And
Yeah.
even what I do as a recruiter, the first thing that I do is call people that are gainfully employed. And have I had somebody say, you know, you might want to look at so and so at this company because I know they're really good, but I'm not allowed to call them.
Mm.
I've had
Yeah.
that happen,
Yeah.
over the course of years, but that's one of my arguments for stay long enough to become really good at something
That's good.
so that people will recruit you to go elsewhere. I'm not saying you have to stay somewhere for 15 years. As a matter of fact, beyond a certain point, staying somewhere too long stagnates you.
Right.
But stay long enough that it makes sense to make a move.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And thank you for putting that in context, because I don't always have the words, but that's how I think of job hopping. I think of it like I got recruited back in the day when I was serving. I
Mhm.
served at a place called the Crab House down in Florida, and I happened to wait on one of the general managers of a hotel. And right after that conversation, she was like, "Hey, I got to have you come work for me." And I was like, "Oh, for sure." Right. It
Yeah.
was my idea. Like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm heading over there." And I always thought of that as the way to do it. Right. I don't necessarily mean or think that it's good to, you know, work at somewhere for a year and be like, I don't like this, and then go there, unless you're young, right? Unless you're really young. And, I quit. My first job was at Johnny Rockets as a dishwasher. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, no, this isn't, this isn't for me after like a week.
That is okay, but like once you're building your professional portfolio, we'll
Right.
call it, stay somewhere long enough to gain experience. 3 months, 6 months probably isn't going to do it. But I mean, my golden number is 2 years. If you can
Mm,
stay somewhere 2 years, that gives you, some expansive experience. You may have been promoted during that point or been given additional responsibilities. So you can create, you can create a dialogue or a
sure.
narrative as to why you wanted to continue to grow, because
Sure.
I got to where I could go at this company, but in order for me to get to the next point, I had to go elsewhere, and a former supervisor called me.
Yeah.
And
I think that's important to know too, like that relationship side, the fact that you were a reliable, good worker, and you've made a good impression. You don't know down the line when you're going to come across that supervisor again. I always give the example of like when a new CEO gets into a company and then all of a sudden she puts together her C-suite. It's because these are people that she's worked with before. It's like, hey,
100%. And that's why I say it. And you know what? That person may have only been at their former company for a year. And if they tell me it's because the CEO recruited them to come there, that negates any negative feeling I'm going to have about the job hopping.
yeah,
You're so good that a CEO personally called you and said, I have to have you on my team. Here's what I'm trying to build.
yeah,
That's a different story. And so it's not a cut and dry thing,
right,
like, don't
right.
job.
It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray, but again, it's nuanced, and we got to talk about specific people's situation, to make sure that they get the best outcome for their career. So leave the people, Natalie, with like 2 or 3 tips if they are looking for the job. I know we've touched on resume stuff, we've touched on job hopping, but I know you have a ton of content on this stuff. Leave people with like two or three things that maybe can help them improve their job search, and landing the career that they want.
Well, number one, and what I tell people, because from an outplacement side, I have people come in all the time and, I'll look at their background. They've done a couple different things. They don't know what they want to do. Well, I'm open to this or this. Get really granular on that and figure out what you want to do for a living. Figure out what you like. And that's a hard question for people to really kind of focus down on, because I don't know. I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur like you are. I
Yeah,
mean, I've had my own business. I also have a couple of others that I just decide to, kind of, just latch on to
yeah,
what I originally do too. I mean, I get that. But if you want to work in corporate America, figure out what it is you want to do and utilize your network. And when you're utilizing your network, ask those people for referrals and build upon that. But, go to people that you trust that know what you want to do, because when I tell people about networking, it's not about just meeting somebody one time and shaking their hand and thinking, and sometimes they will walk you into a job, but you have to create advocates. And that's why you have to stay somewhere for a long enough period of time that somebody's going to advocate for you, whether it's through a reference, through a referral, through a networking contact, use that network. That's probably your most important currency in the job market.
They say your network is your net worth, right? So
100%, 100%.
very true. Very true. Man, I had two more questions that popped up. I know I said we are going to land the plane.
No,
So
keep going. I'm good.
Couple more minutes. So two things. One, because we're sitting here on LinkedIn, how can someone utilize LinkedIn to really enhance their job search, land the company that they want? Like how do we use a platform like LinkedIn to be able to do that?
Oh, I've been on LinkedIn since 2006. And I worked at a recruiting firm, and my boss did not understand the value of this. It's like a compounding network.
Right.
And, my intern and I were like on a race. We were going to see who was going to get to 500 connections first. And my boss, I remember him pressing the intercom and saying, "Quit playing on the internet." And
that sounds like a 2006 thing to say, right?
It went through the whole office.
Yeah.
Natalie and Dan, quit playing on the internet. And I'm like, so when I had my review at the end of the year, we started talking about, because I built my own desk within the company, my own area of focus. And he said, "Well, where did you get your candidates from?" And he goes, we had a spreadsheet out and everything. And I said, "I got all of my candidates through LinkedIn." And he said, "All of them? What about our database?" And I said, "Your database was mainly for me to input information." I said, "I was starting an entirely new practice area. There was no one in there."
Right.
I said, I don't want to say no one, but the
Sure.
candidates that I needed for specific jobs. And at that time, they bought a lot of lists. He goes, "What about our lists?" I said, "Every single person I got because," and they might not have been a first degree connection, but because I was connected with all of these people,
Sure.
I could see other names. So use LinkedIn as a platform. Your LinkedIn profile should be exactly like your resume. Everything that's on your resume should be on your LinkedIn, because this is how people like me find you. And there might be a keyword in there that if you just have the companies you're at, it doesn't necessarily give me that information. I may pass you up because you don't have a specific system experience or, so, but when you're using this as to apply for jobs, go on to the company website. Don't hit that easy apply button. I know it's easy for a reason, but you might be passed up because they don't know your whole story.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I've given people even, some of what I call the offensive side of LinkedIn as well, where if you know the 5, 6, 7 companies you want to work for, well, they're all on LinkedIn too. And the senior VP is on LinkedIn, and the president, like all of their employees are on LinkedIn. Send them a message, connect with them, just engage on their stuff. If they post things, just engage, become a name that people in the company that are paying attention will start to see. And that will, I believe, help that application process. It'll help them start to see. I mean, if you know who the decision maker is for who's going to hire you, they're probably on LinkedIn also. So you can connect with them, right?
And if I, even when I was starting out and I was calling companies with cold calls, I would get the name of the person and call them directly at the company. It's a great, naming resource. But yes, you're exactly right with the engaging with content. If you've got really insightful comments, not comments like, hey,
Great
good,
job.
great job, nice post, good
Right.
article. No, engage with
Yeah.
thoughtful comments so they think, who is this person?
Right.
Gosh, they've really got their finger on the pulse of this,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you apply or you reach out and say, I'm interested in this job.
Yeah.
They're going to vaguely recognize your name and say, oh, wait a minute, this is the person that,
That's right.
I kind of piqued my interest.
That's right. And I think that's the playing offense side. There's a lot
Mhm.
of people that I see that sit back and wait for the job to call, wait for the interview. Like they wait for it. And I'm like, no, no, no. You got to go play. If you're going to play the game, you got to go play offense. If you want to work for these companies, there's tons of resources, especially on LinkedIn, to get in touch, to find out what they're, what's important to them, what's happening in the company. Maybe they're throwing some type of conference that you can show up to. If you have nothing going on, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a job and they're throwing a conference. You might want to go there if it's in your city, and you'll shake a hand with someone. Back to the networking side. You'll
Yep.
shake a hand, and that might be your foot in, but we can't just sit back and wait and say, oh, no one's calling me. No
I
one's
applied to 200 jobs and
exactly. I push back on those, right? Because again, and this the last thing that I did want to talk about is, when do you know, you and I are entrepreneurs, when do you know maybe I don't need to go to a job anymore? Maybe I do need to like bet on me and my skills and give it to the marketplace. I feel like we're in in a time right now where it's never been like simpler to like put out content, to start a
oh,
business, like to do something. So when should people start to think about that and say, like, I'm not going to wait on the job, I'm going to become the entrepreneur?
and the nice thing about especially like the online and the content creation, you can do it gradually as you're working.
Right.
Because I think the biggest, when I talk to people who are actively unemployed, active job seekers, I'll I'll ask them, what about, sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Right.
Ask them, what about, doing your own thing, consulting, being an entrepreneur? The fear is the
Mm,
biggest factor that holds them back. They're afraid they're gonna fail. They're afraid that, and these are people who have backgrounds 10 times as strong as mine. What do you mean?
yeah,
It's that unknown. I mean, people like stability. They crave it. They need it in their everyday life, and this is as unstable as it gets.
sure, sure.
So going out there and, so a lot of times I'll talk to people about, you know, I ask every entrepreneur, how did you get started? What did you do? What did you do to first get business?
Mhm.
And that's something that I try to provide to people, that I'm trying to give them, just kind of some motivation to just start their own thing, when they, especially when they're talking about like, gosh, I have these constraints, like children at home, aging parents, things like that. These are really common, my mother had early onset Alzheimer's. That was
Mhm.
one of my motivating factors. This was long before work from home was a
Sure.
possibility or a thing. And I needed to have that flexibility. Plus, I also had 2 kids that were elementary schoolers. And so, what do you do with all these people who need you
Right.
and have a job that pays your bills? So,
Right. Exactly. I think this is the right conversation. This is reason I do the other podcast, Jobs to Journey, because that's what it is. It's how do we go from a job to the entrepreneurial journey? That fear piece, Natalie, is it.
oh,
You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. It's people don't know how to get through the fear of betting on themselves, not having a steady paycheck, not knowing if it's going to work, like all those types of things. And we have to help people switch their mindset around it, to say, like, listen, if you don't like this side, you have skill sets, you have things that people need. Now you just have to learn how to give those skill sets to the marketplace. I teach people sales and marketing, those two skills, because that's what they are, right? A sales skill is the ability to influence, the ability to communicate your value, your vision, your product, your expertise, right? It's just sales. I'm influencing you. And then marketing, your ability to get attention. How do you go from no one knowing who you are to 1,000 people knowing who you are? Those are just skills that you can practice on top of your expertise, on top of the industry you want to be in. just start to learn those things. We make money at the level of our skill sets. And so I always tell people, just upgrade your skill set in those two areas, start taking action, and the fear will go away, right? Because you'll see, oh, it's possible. I can do this. Someone does need this. But people are so afraid to get started. They're so afraid to just get out of their comfort zone, like I always say. And
Yeah.
that's what's needed, right? If we really want to earn income, if we really want to create, the dream life, or right, have the dream career or the business or the thing that gives us time or whatever, we have to get uncomfortable. And I don't know that people do that enough.
Well, no, most people don't. And most people, that I've had people ask me, like, how do you do it? How do you,
Right.
And I said, you have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. I'm like, I wake up every day and I know that the only way I'm going to make money is if I go out and do what I'm good at.
Gotta do the work. Gotta
You've
do the
got
work.
to do the work, and you have to constantly do the work. You don't just, I mean, to a degree, I guess I can skate now because I have
Right.
27 years of clients and business that comes to me, but you got to do the work at some point. It's like I tell my kids, your first 5 years of work, I don't care what you're doing. It's just going to suck.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no better term, because you have to do that work. If you're working in sales, if you're working in whatever, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. You've got to do all of the garbage work and get good at it, and do it without complaint, or,
That's exactly it.
and, earn your keep.
That's right. That's right, man. That's awesome. Natalie, what are you working on? What do you want to share with the people? I know you said you got some other products and some other things you're getting out to the world these days. So what are you working on that people might be able to get some of your 27 years of expertise?
Well, hey, follow me. I'm on, Natalie Lemons on LinkedIn. My company's the Resilience Group. I also am the Resilient Recruiter, and I also have another one called Need a New Gig on, you name the socials, I'm on it. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm not on YouTube. Just haven't done it yet. But yeah, follow me. I'm also creating online courses, which if you follow me, or if you get onto my mailing list, I'm doing a career transition course, an interviewing course. I'm going to do a resume revamp course. I'm working on that right now. So I'm mainly trying to be online so that I can give the information out that people are always calling me and asking and referring people to, so that they have a resource that they can go to if they have a question on a topic.
It's huge. That's huge. You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. Go find her, all the socials. Go take a look at her content. At the end of the day, reach out if you're in a position where you need a little transition in your career. You need some insight on what to do next. Natalie's going to be able to help you out. So, Natalie, this was a great conversation. I appreciate your insight, and I appreciate you taking some time today.
Oh, thanks so much, Chris. Hey, I was nervous about being live, but obviously the gift of gab helped a little bit.
I told you you'd be fine. I told you you'd be fine. And I'm sure people took away a ton of information today. So thank you again for taking your time out today to be on BizBuzz. All right.
You are very welcome. Anytime. Thanks
so
Chris.
much. Take care.
Right.
Yes, y'all, you heard it here first. You heard Natalie. You heard the conversation. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to, change careers. At the end of the day, you're going to need a little bit of a skill upgrade. You're going to need to learn a few things, whether it's how to write your resume better, whether it's how to communicate better, network, get sales ability, marketing ability. You got to upgrade your skill sets, but know it's possible to get you to the life you want, the income you want, the career you want, the work-life balance you want, whatever that is. You've probably gotten a bunch of things that you can take away from today's conversation. Biggest one for me is you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, ladies and gentlemen. It's huge. It's going to set you up for success, though, because the more that you get uncomfortable, the more you're growing. And that's what we got to do to get to the income we need. So check us out next Friday. It's already March. Man, it's going to be March. That's crazy. 2 months of the year down. the first Friday of March, we're going to dive back in to some more conversations around how to create the income that you need to get to the life that you want, y'all. So until next time, peace.